Welcome back, traders. In today's episode, we're going to answer the question, should you have multiple trading accounts? And we're going to talk about the pros and cons of whatever decision you want to make. We're also going to talk about capital partitioning. So if you haven't heard that term before, make sure you listen up. Now, today's podcast comes from a recording from a video series we have on YouTube called The Trader Coffee Break. This is where Jason Greystone and myself get together and just have a little bit of water cooler talk about what's happening in the markets. If you want to catch it live and be part of the discussion, join in every Wednesday at 10 o'clock a.m. New York, 3 p.m. UK. Just YouTube search The Trader Coffee Break on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and you won't miss the next time we go live.
Today, we're going to be talking about multiple trading accounts, right?
Yes, we are. It's a cool subject. I'm glad you brought it up because it was something that was it was on the mind the other day after a conversation I had with someone. So I'm like, that works perfectly. And it's something that we haven't discussed on this channel yet. Which is
no,
cool.
And it might be the same person that messaged me and asked me my advice on multiple trading accounts. And I actually said, look, we'll just dedicate the session or the conversation this week to that. And I think it is an important one. It'll be a valuable one. It's not something you really hear many people talking about. But of course, there are pros and cons to having multiple trading accounts. And what we're talking about before we get stuck into it is literally having physical separate trading accounts where you're funding capital into, or funding an account with capital, and then you're opening another account, funding that account with extra different capital, and then you're trading different styles, or maybe you're just doing it for diversification, whatever it might be, but you're literally trading two separate accounts. And if you're listening and thinking, well, why the hell would I want to do that? Well, that's why this discussion is going to be really valuable to you. So I don't know where to start. Maybe start off by talking about why people might want to do it. I guess the pros.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of separation in general. Now there's separation to a point where it causes confusion, but even like in basic personal finance, right? If you're putting your money into different places where maybe you have money set aside for investments, for savings, for rainy day, for vacation, I think it's a lot easier for a lot of people because most of us aren't financially disciplined out there.
No.
I think it's easier to have it in different places. I know growing up in the past, I know long time ago when I first started kind of, having different categories for my savings, I started, when one would go low, like my spending money would go low, I start dipping in the savings or dipping in the investments, and you get into the whole thing like, oh, I'll just put it back when the next paycheck comes in, and it's all over the place. So I think in general, if you want to have your money and dedicate yourself to putting money in different places for different reasons, I think having that separation makes it a lot easier. Same thing with, I know you've talked before about kind of the automatic investing in a sense where, instead of getting your full paycheck and separating it yourself, you have it go, your paycheck goes directly into this account or this portion goes directly into that account, and you don't have to be that middleman. So it takes that responsibility away. I think as far as if someone wants to have money in separate accounts for separate reasons, just in a general purpose, not just particular to trading, doing so will help you become more disciplined because now you have to go over here to use that for whatever it is. You have to go over there and use it for whatever it is. And it eliminates that kind of temptation to overlap and pull one from this to pay for something in the other. So I think that's a benefit outside of trading. What would you say is one of the pros?
I'd say one of the pros in trading would be not missing opportunities. So you could trade separate strategies on separate accounts, or you may have a swing trading account and an intraday account where you're not missing, because if you've got a swing trade on and it's a longer term move that you're looking for, there may be some intermediate moves that take place that you can't involve yourself in because you're in that longer term trade, which means you're missing out on opportunity to make money. And by separating your accounts and going, right, I'm going to trade this system on that account and this system on that account, allows you to take advantage of both of those opportunities. I guess that's probably one of the biggest pros, I think.
Yeah, I've got a story about them. I'm sure shared it before here or somewhere, but I used to trade everything in one account. So I used to have two different trading kind of businesses, right? I look at different trading strategies in my business. So I was a day trader, which was supposed to be one business. I was a swing trader, which was supposed to be another business, but I had all the money in the same account. I just, had an Excel spreadsheet and I'd keep track of what was meant for what was meant for the other. It wasn't the greatest way to do it at all, but this is before I knew about separation or thought about separation. And the turning point for me was, I had the same portfolio for both strategies as well. So the same portfolio pairs that I did for my swing trading, I was looking at it for my day trading. And I ran into a trade, I think it was on Aussie dollar or Aussie Canada. From a swing trading perspective, it was like a 4-hour/daily type of trade. And the market was consolidating. I was looking for a specific move and I got involved. And long story short, so that swing trade took about, I think I was in it for almost about a month. Right. And the funny thing was I was running my live room, and while the market was kind of going up and down each and every day in my swing trading account, where you're up 100 pips, you're down 100 pips, you're up 100 pips, that kind of consolidative yo-yo, we had 2 weeks of like straight patterns on the lower time frames. We're in the live trading room and we're just like pattern this, pattern that, and all that consolidation, right, was making the traders in the live room so much money. So we're all excited. And then I realized, right, guess who couldn't take any of those lower time frame patterns? Me, right? Because all of my money was tied up in the swing trading account. So I missed out on I think it was about 200 pips of profit on the lower time frame because my money was tied up in this higher time frame trade, which ended up losing anyway. And that opportunity cost, the fact that I had to miss out on good trades, and good trades don't come too often, that was kind of the last straw. And I said, wait a minute, this is not very smart. Like, I'm sacrificing this because of that. It needs to be, if you're going to treat them as separate businesses, they need to be looked at as fully separated. So that is I love the point that you brought up. I've experienced that firsthand. It was very hurtful and painful. But those are the lessons that you typically act off of. So I think that's what
about hedging? Because in the US, I know you're not allowed to hedge, which essentially means placing an order to basically buy and sell at the same time. Can you have two separate accounts and buy in one, sell in the other?
You know what? If you have two completely separate accounts, yeah, you can. If everything's tied up in one, you can't, because once your orders are on, they're on, and you just stop yourself out of your position. That's a good point. I never thought about that. Where if you wanted to hedge, right, having that separation allows you to do it because there's no type of contradiction there. That's a very good point. I didn't even think about that.
So in the UK, I don't think that's a problem because you can hedge, but in the US you can't. So that's another pro. I know there's also some people that like to use a form of, it's called capital partitioning. And what you essentially do is, let's just say your account is 100 grand, just to keep the numbers simple. If you're on a real winning streak and you're doing really well, what you do is you essentially still keep the same position size, but you siphon off half of your account into another trading account, but you keep trading as if the amount was still the same. Now, some people do this with their strategies when they know what their maximum allowable drawdown is and all the rest of it, but they're essentially doubling their position size and siphoning half into another account and trading that a certain way. Now, that's quite complex and it requires you to have certain strategies that allow you to do that. But capital partitioning, if you go and Google capital partitioning, you'll see what I'm talking about there. It's a bit much to go into over a coffee, but it's definitely another pro. Can't think of any pros. If you're watching this, let us know in the chat if you can think of any other benefits to having separate trading accounts. Capitalization risk, correlation risk, I guess, if you want to, things like that. Hedging, not missed opportunity, all those kind of things. The downsides, obviously, the first one I can think of is account growth acceleration. Right. Yeah, that has to be the most obvious, because if you've got 100 grand in one account, of course, if you're going to get 10% on that, that's 10 grand. But if you've got it split into different accounts and now the performance is across two different accounts, depending on the systems, you may not be able to grow that capital as quickly as you could if it was all in one lump sum. Make sense? Yeah. So, go on, Akil, sorry.
Oh, no. I was gonna say, yeah, that's the biggest one that came to my mind was that if you're splitting your available capital to invest, and if you're doing it the smart way, your position size is going to be split because of that as well. Now, that's another hit or miss about people paying attention to position sizes. We talked about that last week, but yeah, it's going to have an effect on your overall account growth. And it's kind of the same dilemma where it's like, people that trade multiple strategies, or maybe like they trade an extremely big portfolio where it's that balance between performance and frequency, where it's like, if you trade a 20 pair portfolio, you get excited because you're like, hey, I have 20 different pairs and the frequency will rise, but the risk you can take on each of those individual pairs is smaller because the overall risk is bigger. Versus if you have a 4-pair portfolio, you can really dive in and aggressively trade it. Frequency is going to be lower. There's less diversification, but if they're really high performing pairs, right, it's going to do a massive boost to your equity curve. So that's an interesting balance. And that's the biggest con to think about. I guess the solution, well, what would be, what would be your advice to traders on making that decision? Is that something we want to save till the end and deal with some more cons first?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, let's have another con would be the complexity. So you're going to have to manage two positions, right? That's going to cause you to devote more time potentially. It adds another element of error potentially because your focus is divided between two accounts. Another pro, which I thought of, might be if you're developing systems and you want to fund an account, just a small account, and maybe you're building an automation or an ATM and you just want to test the water to micromanage, see how it performs in real time with real money. You can do that and set up another account without worrying about it being too much capital in there or all the rest of it. Maybe you want to siphon off a bit of your trading allocation just to test a little account like that, and having a multiple account would be what you need to do that.
You know what, that brings up two things, and I don't know if this is a pro or a con. This is going to be interesting. But so when I had two accounts with the same person or same brokerage or whatever like that, the accounts were just, it's an account number that you get. So it's like NTO 7753, NCO 55, whatever like that. And I was trading both swing trading and day trading off the same account or off the multiple accounts. I would often get confused about which was which, and especially not as much in the swing trading environment, but in the day trading environment where everything is a million miles per hour and you're rushing to get into a move before you miss it. There were plenty of times when I would execute a trade in the wrong account and then stop myself out by accident thinking it was a different account. So again, I don't know if that's a pro or a con, but that's something you need to be aware of. Something that just came to mind off of what you mentioned, and I don't know if this was in a Market Wizards book or if this was a trader I spoke to. So we know that psychological discomfort causes a lot of errors in trading. And something is interesting in this, right? So we always have, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of FOMO, a lot of traders don't have patience, they want to trade all the time. We had a good conversation in the live room today about intuition, right? We were dealing with a trader who didn't really have solid rules, and he's like, yeah, but I believe, I think, I feel, when I see this, I think it's going to do that. I'm like, you can't trade it. I'm like, you can't trade it. We can work on developing rules for it, but you can't trade it because you don't have a reason for what it is. But there's always that desire to fill that void. And if you're disciplined, you deal with it and you take the right steps to approach it. If not, you eventually give into it. And I remember hearing a story of a trader who had a main account for trading. And then he had a side account, just some fun money, maybe let's say a couple thousand. You got $1,000 in one account, your main account has, 10,000, whatever like that. And what he would do is when he when the markets were either dry and there was nothing to trade, or like when he saw a setup that wasn't technically in his plan, but like he wanted to do it, he would do those bad things in the side account,
Right.
instead of his main account. And it seems dumb to a lot of people, like, well, why would you waste money? But like, if it's in that side account and it's small money, like he's fulfilling that need to break his rules and do whatever. And he's not doing it in his main account, right? It's the same kind of concept as like, pay yourself first. Whereas like, if you're going to give yourself fun money in budgeting, right? Give yourself a certain amount first, right? That's your money for spending or fun. And then, do the rest later. Versus like, if you just, give yourself something that's left over and there's nothing left over, you're more likely to do those bad habits with the money that you really care about. So that's interesting, having that separate account for experimentation, strategy development, or just to be like a hall pass, just to be like a wild boy or wild girl for a little bit and be reckless in something that's not going to damage your bigger picture. And we're not advising you break your rules, but if you're going to do it like a rage room, if you're going to go out and riot and destroy stuff, right, do it in a controlled environment. I guess that's better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to kind of something we need to touch on is there might be some people that are really, really new to trading watching this, and you need to understand that there is a element of protection of your capital by having it in diversified account, just the same way that you would have it in different banks. If you had £1 million in your bank account, you probably wouldn't want it in your one bank, split it over 3 banks. That's just sensible. It's sensible to do that. Now, with all the apps available at the moment, so you can get Robinhood or Trading 212 and all these kind of brokerage accounts will allow you to buy stocks. They may allow you to invest in index funds. They may allow you to trade Forex in one account. And that's what I wouldn't recommend. I would advise that you have separate accounts for separate investing and speculation strategies. So many of you guys know already that I put the bulk of my capital allocation into passive, and then I have a physical separate account for buying stocks, and then I have a physical trading account that might be 30% of the entire liquidity in a Forex trading account. And then I've got a small allocation that I can just take on punts, like buy Bitcoin or a crypto that isn't linked to my Forex trading account. That's really important you understand that, because with many of the apps and everything now, you can just do everything in one. You can have access to all different instruments and investments in one. And I just need you to understand it's very wise to kind of separate that out. Keep your trading for your trading. So I know we're talking about kind of multiple accounts, but we're specifically talking about trading accounts, Forex, really. That's kind of where this episode spun off of. But I thought, as we was talking, I thought, wow, I wonder how many people are actually doing everything in one account. We're going to assume that you've got separate accounts for different strategies.
Got a war story about that too, but Chris had a good question on chat here. He said, going back to the separate account for strategy development or breaking your rules, he said, wouldn't that cause you to break your rules in your main account and also create a bad habit? I'm curious on what you think of that, Jason.
Wouldn't that cause you to break your rules in your main account and create a bad habit? Potentially. I would. My argument would be this: if you are breaking your rules, that's on you. You're not ready to manage one account, let alone 2 accounts. So that's more of a self-reflection thing. And if it's complexity and lack of focus that's causing you to break your rules, then go back to one account. Get good at trading one strategy you're comfortable with on one market, and prove to yourself that you can do that on one account before you even think about managing other accounts. That would be my answer to that question.
Yeah. Like I look at it as being like, and you can see this in so many aspects of life, like doing anything cold turkey is really hard. Like I've tried so many times to do like cold turkey diets where it's like I'm cutting out all sugar and all treats and whatnot. And what happens is you typically start off well for a little bit, and then like those urges come and they get greater and greater and greater. And eventually you give in, and before you know it, you're passed out on the couch with a whole box of Oreos and crumbs all over the place, and your wife is yelling at you. And I mean, from a friend told me this.
Yeah. Apparently that happens. Apparently that happens.
But the fact is, if you do something like that, like we have those natural urges, right? We have to have release in many aspects of life, whether it's buying something, whether it's going on vacation. For some people, it's gambling, and if we can fulfill those urges somehow, it stops us from them becoming damaging in other places, right? Yeah. So I don't think necessarily, and again, it goes back to being disciplined. Like you said, if we have a separate account, we're allowed to break our rules. I don't think that necessarily is going to encourage us to break our rules in our bigger account, because in most cases, when you break your rules, you're going to lose, right? Yeah. You're not going to win. You're going to lose. And then you're like, whew, glad I did that in the mini account versus the big one.
Yeah.
But it's just like a diet, right? You could be on a diet, but you could be allowed to have a dessert, right? You can be allowed to have a treat. Maybe you have a cheat day. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And when you have that cheat day, it actually makes you stronger in doing your other stuff. I was speaking to Jason about this earlier before the show, where, I was talking about a big steak last night. I haven't eaten red meat in a long time, right? And my stomach hurt. And now it's reminded me of like, hey, I don't necessarily want to do this again. And I'm glad I only had a little bit instead of a massive amount, because, maybe I'd be down for the day. So I do think it can roll over, but I think it goes back to your discipline. It's only going to roll over if you allow it to. Yeah. It's only going to roll. I mean, if you want to if you're going to commit bad habits, you're going to convince yourself to do them regardless.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you can make bad habits in your small account, and then you convince yourself to do it in your large account, I think that's on you. I don't think it makes it that much easier. I think that's just on you for using it as an excuse to do so.
Yeah. Great points. Great discussion. Let us know in the comments if you have separate trading accounts and how you use it, what your purpose is for having separate trading accounts, how it's helped you, how it's hindered you in the past, if you've gone back to one account. Let us know your strategies. Help each other understand kind of the opportunities and possibilities out there from your learnings as well, so you can help the community grow. And I think that's a great way to round it off. Ultimately, there are pros and cons to everything, and it's taking the time to weigh it up with what your mission is, what your motivation is, what your agenda is, your objective. And if it suits that and aligns with that, great. But if not, then don't worry about it. Just keep one account and carry on.
Yeah, I got one more thing before we leave, and this goes off of your last point. So I was a victim of someone that was had an account that was scammed.
Right.
So early on in my trading career, I had a trading account. I had money into it, and I woke up to the harsh news one day that all of the money was gone. And lost everything. It sucks, because this is when I first started getting good at trading. Like, I hit my groove, and I'm making money hand over fist, and then all gone after that. And fortunately, it wasn't a massive amount of money. It was at the time, but it wasn't like a life-changing amount of money. But it goes back to your point where you always just want to have protection. Like in these days, I think it's a lot less likely to happen than it was 10, 15 years ago. But you never know. You never want to have all your eggs in one basket. So when you get to a certain level, and that level is going to be different for each person, I don't think you should keep all your money in the same account, right? No. You should cap it off, move it somewhere else. God forbid that situation happens where you get that phone call or you read the headlines and it's like, hey, this account is gone.
Yep.
But if it does, right, you still have a chip in the chair. You can still say like, hey, I'll pull from this other account. It sucks that I went backwards, but I still have a place in the game. Versus being someone that's completely out there on the street. You have maybe no job because you quit everything. Now you have no funds, and it's like, what do you do? So I'm a big believer in that extra level of protection. And again, that what level that is up to you, but there should be a level where you grow your account so much that you start siphoning it off into other places, or even a separate account, just to have that a little bit of diversity in there.
Absolutely. And going back back to what I said about capital partitioning, a lot of that is to do with that. So if you grow your account beyond 100 grand, you might want to siphon off some of that into another account, but keep trading as if the money was still there because it's still your system. So you want go and check out capital partitioning. If you've got any other questions or you want to input anything else, the chat's been great today. You guys are really engaged. And by the way, Demo Trader, hats off to you, man. You've won the medal today for the most engagement in the chat. Appreciate you being here.
He's drunk the most coffee today. He's ready.
He had a coffee and a muffin.
Drinker of the day.
All right, and that's it for today. If you enjoy this, let us know. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you get notified when we schedule these other topical discussions in. And until next time, take care, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you then.
Hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember, subscribe to the Trader Coffee Break channel. We go live on Wednesdays, 10 a.m. New York, 3 p.m. UK, talking about the subjects that, well, really you don't hear a lot about over the internet. We do it in a nice laid-back fashion. We have the chat open so you guys can join as well, ask questions, and lend your opinions. YouTube search The Trader Coffee Break with Jason Greystone and myself, Akil Stokes, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.